So as I said, my guest is already on the line. She followed instructions. The phone rang at exactly the time that I asked her to. So let's see. Let me get her introduced. I received my BA in political science from the University of Puerto Rico, Mayagüez in 2007. I then went to law school and finished a JD from the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico School of Law in 2010. In that same year, I moved to Florida to pursue an LL.M. in Comparative Law from the University of Florida Fredric Levin College of Law, which I completed in 2011. During that time, I received a book award for my research and contribution to UFL's Selected Problems in Human Rights Seminar and worked as a teaching office assistant at the University of Florida. University of Florida LL.M. Oh, there we go. I had to get the line straight. In Comparative Law Program as a research assistant to Professor Winston P. Nagan and became a researcher and fellow of the UFL Institute for Human Rights, Peace, and Development. In addition, thanks to Professor Nagan's nomination, I also became a junior fellow of the World Academy of Art and Science. In 2012, I moved to the D.C., Maryland area to pursue a Ph.D. in Communication, Culture, and Media Studies Department at Howard University, which I finished in fall of 2016. All right, together with 2 certificates. While at Howard University, I was awarded the Annenberg Honors Program Scholarship for the academic years 2013-2014 and 2014-2015, was selected among the 2014 Who's Who among students in American Universities and Colleges program, and was invited to become a researcher of Howard Media Group and a member of the Golden Key International Honor Society. During my time at Howard University, I also worked as a graduate assistant of the Howard University Office of Communications under the supervision of Dr. Kery-Ann Hamilton, and as a graduate assistant for the Howard University 2013 Health Symposium Initiative on Democracy, Markets, Communications, and Technology under the supervision of Dean Emerita Dr. Jannette Date. My general research interests are focused on human rights, international law, international relations, family law, humanitarian law, public interest policy, media law, and media policy. Welcome to the Reading Circle microphones, Aitza Haddad-Nunez. Aitza, bienvenidos.
Gracias. Thank you so much. That sounded so impressive. Thanks, Mark. Thank you so much. Oh, and before we begin, congratulations on your podcast. I heard that you were so excited, so I got excited as well. Trust me, I'm going to go and find myself where you are in all those platforms and make sure that I follow you as well. As well as all your fans.
Well, thank you. At least I know I'll have one.
I'm just one among the many.
Yes, that's always all. Like I said, we're building the base constantly. I've actually been on the air here. This is going into my 17th season. So this base, each one helps the other. So the blog post, I can advertise there. When I'm on the show, I can advertise there. When I'm on the podcast, I can advertise these. I mean, so it's, constant advertising marketing, if you will. So, so as many followers that we can get, like on my YouTube channel, I kind of look every day to see if the numbers are going up, down, how many subscribers I have, so forth and so on, because it really is all about the numbers. Not to mention, I mean, the message that we're trying to get out, they're very good messages. Like this morning, what we're talking about is critical information that the listening audience, can learn something from, because just about everything I do is education related, one way or the other, whether it's the podcast, the radio show, my day job as a principal. Now I'm also on the adjunct professor again, because I've adjuncted at a couple of different schools. I'm getting ready to start adjuncting again. So congratulations. That's great. Yeah, actually, and this one's at my alma mater. I mean, this will be my, third, fourth school. Let me see, Fairleigh, Passaic County Community. Yeah, this will be my third school, but this one's actually my alma mater right here, at the same campus the radio station sits on. So I'm looking forward to that. And, it's just like I said, most for me, I'm about education, knowledge, learning. And I see there from your bio, and the thing that has impressed me with all the folks that I've had on that's written in the book, you all are all young. All of you are like young. You're not like 80, 90.
No, We're taking over the world. We are.
And that's a beautiful thing. See, that does me well. That does my heart good to know that they are, because the younger generations, a lot of times they take a lot of heat. They take some bad raps that none of them are doing anything. They're all selfish. They're not about anything, so forth and so on. But the folks that I've had come through here that have contributed to News Chaser is bucking that. I mean, that's debunking that. That's just a straight up myth. There are some young people who are out about the business.
Exactly. Very good. That's great. And it is. And I mean, as an Argent, I'm pretty sure that you're seeing how the new generations are coming even more and more ambitious than we can actually be. I'm actually impressed. I'm so proud of all of my students. Like I'm very excited and hopeful about the future because exactly of what you're saying. It's crazy.
Now, for you, and part of that is going to be part of it, because let me tell you how the interview going to work. We'll be on the line for a little while as long as you got the time. If you have to go, let me know. But we'll be on here for a little while because we're going to talk about a few different things. And one of them, of course, being the fact that you're a Latino. And then you heard me doing the Puerto Rico because I've been learning Spanish for like forever. So like since I was in high school. I mean, like I had Spanish 1, Spanish 2, and every year I've been trying to do a little here and there. I still remember my Spanish teacher, Miss Diaz, and she just thought I was a natural because I could read it. If your bio was written in Spanish, I can read it straight up. My only problem is just remembering all the words. And so whenever I try to speak it without looking at it, and I have to see how things translate. But where I'm going with that is the fact that you now have accomplished much. And unfortunately, as African Americans and Latinos, a lot of people try to pretend like we don't have the capability and ability to do that. And that's another myth that needs to be debunked. So as you're now progressing along and as a Latino female, talk to me a little bit about what was it like for you doing what you do as a Latino female? Because I know it was like for me as an African-American male.
Wow. It's been a very interesting journey. Even from Puerto Rico, I mean, in the island, things are very interesting. I love my people. We're such passionate community, and I mean, it was fun. I mean, there was a lot of fun available for while I was growing up and pursuing my degree. So I think that, in a sense, at the time that I was growing up, it was a challenge because there were many things around us for us to do that would take us away from maybe our goals or our dreams. One thing that I say in as a testament of how hard maybe things could have been for me, I became a single mother when I was 19, and now that I'm 34 and I have my 4 degrees, I can absolutely tell you that I can't even imagine that journey without that boy. Like, I actually think that he was the one that made it possible. So I think everything is about how we see the things that happen within that journey. Like, everything in life it's either a tragedy or an opportunity, and you are the one that made yourself a victim of situations. So I think very young, I first of all, I understood my role in my world, in my family, my world and the world and my family and the situation, and how I actually became to be who I was. I call myself a daughter of globalization. My mom is Puerto Rican and my dad is Mexican and Lebanese, and they met in Mexico. And just knowing my background made me very interested about how just things like me were able to happen in the world around, and how these things affected other people and their own situations in their lives. So I refused to make myself a victim and just use everything that it was happening around me as an opportunity and just keep walking. I always knew that, and I still think there's things that I'm here to do in this world, that I have a mission. I don't think that I'm done yet. I think that I'm in a continuing process of learning. I learn from my students every day, from my kids, from every situation. So I still talk in terms about when I grow up. Like, I still think of myself that way. Like, I don't think I have stopped growing up. So again, it was just a dream that I was following that took me to one degree to another and to where I am today. And I still think that there are places that I need to be in, and I'm working towards that too.
Now, where did that dream come from? I mean, did you say you grew up in Puerto Rico or you grew up here in the United States?
No, I was born and raised in the island. The first time that I actually moved from my beautiful Puerto Rico was right after I did my Juris Doctor in 2010. I moved directly to Florida, and again, it was always the reason behind me always moving was because of another degree or another opportunity. Because I think actually when I was growing up in the island, I never thought of myself living anywhere else in the world. And even now, if I even have to take vacations, I always, I don't even look at any other places. My tickets are always to go back home and then come back because I just love it. So I grew up speaking Spanish all the time with my friends and watching local Spanish television, Univision, Telemundo. And then the local ones, we had I don't know if it's still there yet, but we had the Channel 4 and other certain things like that. We had the community aspect of the media. And it was very, very interesting. We had a very interesting childhood, very different from the one my kids are having now, playing outside, climbing trees. And I think maybe looking at the differences as how people started treating each other when you start building up your identity growing up. And again, realizing who I was and how different I was from my friends and how I was situated in this world that I was growing up. And instead of using that to feel bad about myself, to use it as an opportunity to help others. I don't really know personally my biological dad. And growing up in such a small island, it's something that you notice that you're different. The culture is very different.
No, it really is. And I've been to Puerto Rico years ago. I actually stayed in the area called Dorado. Dorado. It's, is it Dorado or Dorado?
Dorado, El Dorado. Yeah,
Dorado. So it is Dorado.
No, don't add El, it's just Dorado.
Just Dorado. That's right. That's correct. And I remember Coqui the Frog, and I had the opportunity to go to Bacardi factory and went over there where the cannon is to the fortress and just had the opportunity to tour Puerto Rico. So it's a beautiful island. I'm always fascinated with folks because my wife actually is from Jamaica. She came here in 2001 or something like that, and she was pretty much grown as well. I'm always fascinated at folks that can actually leave their country to go to another country because I'm hesitant to move around the block. I mean, I hate moving. And so you have folks that like you and my wife that actually leave from their country or their island and come here, don't know anybody, and you all are kind of like adventurers to me. So had you been to the United States before prior to moving here, or was that your first time once you moved here?
It was my first. Well, no. Actually, when I was in high school, but it was such a short period of time. I remember moving to Texas with my mom's sister, and her husband was in the Army, so I was living in the Killeen, Texas area for almost, I think it was in my 10th grade. And I mean, it helped. I think it was the time that I actually forced myself to learn English and
right.
kind of really become bilingual. Because there is a thing about, I mean, I don't trying to discourage anyone, but when you're really trying to communicate in both languages, I think the key or maybe, the key of it would be to really think in both languages.
Right.
Instead of trying to translate your thoughts, because it just takes more time, and then you cannot really translate things literally word by word.
You're absolutely, and that's where I keep getting hung up because because I'm working on it's called Duolingo, and I love Duolingo. It really is. Every day I go on the computer and practice with it. It's free. It has all different levels that you go to. And it really, out of all the things that I've done over the years, Duolingo probably has gotten me the furthest, such as Estoy aprendiendo español. And so.
Muy bien.
Gracias. That has been muy años. Muy años de trabajo. Muchos, that's right. Muchos.
Yeah.
So
in Spanish, we do have a word for everything. It's not like in English that you can kind of use certain words in different ways.
Right.
So, for example, now things like that, like muy or muchos, that's a common thing that I see in a lot of my friends. And I always try to help them with that, like how to give them a little like tricks on how to recognize when to you change the whole word, like muy or muchos, depending on what is it exactly that you're saying. So, but you're doing great. No, don't get discouraged. Keep going.
Well, mucho gracias.
Very proud.
Mucho gracias. Mucho gracias. And again, a lot of times whenever I'm working on Duolingo, exactly what you just said, it'll give me the Spanish translation. I have to write it into English. And I'll write it into English and miss one word and it'll be incorrect, or vice versa. I'm like, come on, it means the same thing. Whether I put the it in it or not, in English, it means the same thing. But apparently in Spanish, it doesn't. So, but it's been fun because it has always been a goal of mine to be bilingual. And you said something, again, that was interesting in terms of you're having to learn English. Because, I mean, what was that like for you now to have to come over and learn English? Because I've traveled around the world. I've been blessed, thank God, to go to different countries. And I'm always fascinated in terms of the whole communication piece of not being able to communicate because you don't speak the language. Now, case in point, like I said, I've been in France, and if you go in there and if you speak a couple of French words, if they know English, at that point, they will speak back to you in English. If you don't even make an attempt to speak anything in French, they don't try. They'll come at you in French, okay? Whenever I was in Puerto Rico, a lot of times whenever I would go up to the counter, if we were in a KFC or something like that, they thought I was Spanish. I mean, because even though I'm dark, apparently there's dark Spanish people as well. So even though
we're all
exactly, so even though I'm dark, when I would walk up to the counter, they'd start speaking to me in Spanish, and I would have to say, no hable español, or then they would come back to me in English. And this past summer, I was in China. Now, in the bigger establishments, most of the time someone spoke English. But when you went into a fast food restaurant, none of the folks behind the counter spoke English. Matter of fact, they had for a McDonald's menu or a Burger King menu, they just give you a picture and you had to point. You had to point to whatever it is that you wanted if you were a tourist. But where I'm going with that is communication is vital. And for kids and people who come over to the various countries and they don't speak their language, that is a true challenge. And again, as I said during the day, my day job is a principal. Every now and again, I would get a child who comes over from another country that speaks no English. Like this past year, I had a little boy from Haiti that spoke no English whatsoever. All he spoke was French. Now, by the end of the school year, I was impressed because he came to my office and he did have a few more English words under his belt. And I was shocked. I'm like, wow. So I'm always encouraged by people who can do the dual or multiple language thing. So I'm sure that has to help you in terms of your law firm. And because for me, being trilingual, whatever, to me, that is such an asset. What was it like for you with learning English and so forth and so on? And then how does that, and because you're doing a doctorate in communication, talk to me about that.
Well, it was exactly because of that. My main passion when it comes to law is human rights. And anything that has to do with us as a humanity and what we are entitled just because of us being humans, right? This field is relatively young. It actually started after the 1960s. So we're still in the process of learning the things, how to apply these laws. However, in the process of becoming a lawyer, first growing up, I actually remember just using the CDs, remember CDs?
I do.
Books with the lyrics, and my favorite band was No Doubt.
All right.
All the CDs and all of them. If they didn't have the book, I remember going in the very early days of the internet with my very old computer that my dad has at home. God bless him, because thank God that he had always computers at home. Now I can actually go around. I'm pretty savvy. So I would look for the lyrics, print them out, and just sing them and just practice and practice. And not only, again, like I was saying, at the beginning it was just about repeating what it was written there, but then it got to a point that I got more interested in what I was actually saying. And that's when I realized the power of not only, the difference, of understanding the words of what is it exactly not only what you're trying to say, but what others are trying to tell you in terms of how language sometimes change the context of things, for example.
Right.
So based on that, when I started my undergrad, I actually got accepted into mechanical engineer, because that university in Puerto Rico is very recognized for building really good engineers. Like, different companies around the world come for that. So it's like something that you just hear growing up, and you just get, I wanna make money, so let me do that. You get you become guilty of basically falling for these ideas that are being sold to you through so many different ways: education, media. I call it, like you can see on my writings, neocolonization, right? So it wasn't until I really got into university that I realized that was not for me. I love to talk. I like to communicate, but more than communicate, I like to use communication to build, to create, to make things better. So from there, I changed to political science. I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer, and I was very surprised that during my years of a lawyer, still in Puerto Rico, speaking Spanish, there wasn't, you need to know how to make arguments and stand in front of a person and basically convince that person of what you're trying to sell.
Right.
Like, this is my product, and he has the same product, but he's selling it to you, like, depending on which side in the court you're standing, you're kind of talking about the same product. It's just you're selling it a different way, and you're just trying to convince the other side to buy your argument. However, I don't remember taking any class on communication, but I actually remember falling in love with the aspect of human rights. And within human rights, there are actually articles that speak specifically about the right of being able to communicate, the two-way communication flow, not only between people, but between nations as well. So again, I started realizing more and more how everything that we do in the local aspect affects the global and then comes back to us. So it's like a continuing process. And in my head, it was just the interaction between law and communication, like what really comes first. It's like the whole thing about the chicken and the hen, the chicken and the egg. Like some people, and I have to have this conversation with some of my colleagues, and I have so many sides, and they all have different arguments. Like, no, the laws come first, and then they kind of build on communication, which then builds on culture. And I sometimes think, I don't say it's one or the other. I love research. I love information. Every time I read, I kind of, my head gets shaken, and I have to kind of go back and rethink what I know. But it's very interesting to see how some people are so attached to their beliefs, and they're like, no, like laws come first, or no, communication comes first. I think it's a very interesting interaction that in order to apply human rights, which is just one set of beliefs or ideas or laws, that it has to be applied globally. Like, how does that same question that you're asking to me, I ask myself in terms of how people use this same piece of communication and apply it to their own people, and how this communication is affected by their culture, by their own beliefs, their values, their practices. The same thing, like the same article that I'm talking about communication, which is Article 19, if you ever want to look at it, in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's about communication, but I don't know if United States, like people here, interpret it in one way, and then maybe people, like you said, in France, have another interpretation of how communication then should be in order to be effective. So for me, that's just amazing. It's worth the research, the time. I think it allows to help people to really kind of get to their goals, to what is it that they really want to do in life, and accomplish their mission. Like right now, like we were saying, I'm teaching in three different institutions, and one of them is a dual language system. And for me, it's just amazing to see how, again, this interaction between English and Spanish, whatever their major is, and how they're going to apply what we are doing in class in their own interpretation based on their own culture, their background. And then they have this other process of becoming bilingual. It's just amazing. Like humanity it's amazing.
It really is. And for me, one of my degrees is in communication. One of my masters is in organizational and corporate communications. So again, and I've shared this with each guest that's been on. I've had so much in common with each of you that's been on. One way or the other, we had commonalities. And a lot of times the communication degree is one of them. But one of my degrees is in communication. So I love words. I love to play on words. I love study of words, what words mean. I love double entendre. I love the whole flirtation that you can do with words where it has one meaning in one way and another meaning in another. I mean, that's what you heard whenever you came on. That's why I didn't go on to talk to you, was I was doing the blog post that I did where I was doing the difference between ignorant and stupid, because they are two different things. See, I really love this whole word thing. So when you start talking about communications, you're going right down my alley. And as a matter of fact, back and forth, we're going to jump into your contribution to News Chaser. You start off with the phrase that we all heard, which wasn't new, by the way. I think he thinks it was new, but other candidates have used it, because I see now Reagan had used something very similar, as well as some others. But you start off talking about "Make America Great Again." Now, there's a lot, and each guest that come on, I think we've touched on that phrase one way or the other. There's a lot that's not said in that statement, particularly by who it's coming from. Particularly in the sense of who he followed. Because if you're saying "Make America Great Again," that is making an assumption or an implication that somewhere America fell off greatness. And therefore, I'm here to make it great again. And then again, if you juxtapose it or you look at it from the standpoint of who he followed, that's, as the kids can say now, throwing shade. So that's throwing shade on my previous president, and a lot of that shade, in my mind, and again, I constantly put the disclaimer on: the views and opinions heard here are solely those of the hosts and guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views of William Patterson University or the station owner, or so forth and so on. But my guess is that throwing of shade has a lot to do with the fact that that was an African American that preceded him. So when he's saying "Make America Great Again," as if to say we've lost our greatness. And in my mind, it's like America's still great, always been great, was great under Obama and Clinton and Bush and everybody else. But there's a lot that's not said there, because a lot of people are having a good time with changing out the word "great" to "white." Make America white again. A lot of folks are having a good time with that. And folks kind of wonder, was that really the subliminal or subconscious message that was really being said? And I say all that to say, and that's why I asked you the question earlier about being a Latin American female or a Latin female, because historically, there are groups that, and I hate the term minority because I don't consider myself minority nothing. So there are folks, though, who believe that African Americans, Jews, Hispanics, and any of the ethnic groups, that either they can't produce or shouldn't be able to produce. And yet you have bucked all of that, even to the point of being a single mom at 19, and you was still able to go out and do everything you've done. That's why I really can't take a lot of excuses from a lot of people, because if you really want to get it done, you'll get it done. Regardless, all right? I mean, unless there's a health challenge or something that's really going to keep you out of it. But other than that, if you really want to get it done, regardless of the obstacle, you'll get it done. But that's why I'm asking you the questions that I'm asking you. And that's where I think your piece is going here with anti-immigration and isolationism. The Latin American community unites against Donald Trump. That was in the Le Journal International. In the United States, the presidential candidate Donald Trump has been forced to answer the Latin American community over the last few months. The latter accuses him of having made repeated racist comments, especially against Mexico. Because of his speech and some of his comments about Mexico, the American billionaire now faces a unified Latin American opposition who is dead set. And that was reading from the book, a copy of, I guess, was something that was in, I guess it looks like French. That looks like French. I don't know. Le Journal International, 2 December. I don't think that's Spanish, but maybe it is.
Yes. It's the French.
That's what. So, and I remember the guy from, was it Telemundo or Univision? I'm trying to think of his name because he was on CNN the other night. But he threw him, Raul, I think that's who was in. I think it's Raul. I have to go back and look. But he threw him out. Trump threw him out of a press conference. You had that incident. Yes.
Ramos?
What's his name? Say it again.
Jorge Ramos?
Yes. He's like the commentator or one of the lead anchors.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Trump threw him out of of a press conference, very nastily, very rude, had his bodyguards throw him out. So that was one event. Then he had the event where he called the judge. He didn't think he could be, basically what he was saying is, because he's Mexican, I don't think he's that good of a judge. That's kind of what he was saying, but he was trying to say he's biased because he's Mexican. So he had that comment going. Then you had the whole thing going on with the immigrants of folks being able to come in and out of the country. He says it's not a Muslim ban, but for the most part, it is a Muslim ban. You had all this nonsense where people 1 minute could come into the country, and then folks literally on the plane when they landed were now told, no, I'm sorry, you can't come because the president just changed the laws. I mean, so you had all this kind of craziness going on. And then, of course, we had Charlottesville over the last, and a couple of weeks ago. So your piece, again, is like the others, because the book is very timely. I keep telling Ayo that the book is very timely because everything seems like that you all had written about in the book either came to pass or was coming to pass, or either was just the reality. All right. So talk to me a little bit. Where did you come up with anti-immigration and isolationism in light of everything that I just said?
Starting from, like you said, like the motto, the phrase that he used, the coin, to be like basically what set the tone for his campaign. It's the ambiguity that within the phrase that actually it allows, like you said, for so many interpretations. But if we know that actions speak louder than words. So if we attach many of the things that Mr. Trump has done related to this phrase back to how for so many years he treated Mr. Obama, we can, like you said, that we can. I mean, I'm not saying that every era has its aspects that makes it great in its own, for it, maybe it's specific groups or so. Everything is depending on how you're situated in the piece of information that you're receiving and who's sharing the information with you, right? So depending on how you are situated in every decade or in every time in the historical time, you're probably going to think that each time was great or your own time was great. So like you said, we have to take this very carefully because if we look at his actions towards Mr. Obama and during this year, we can actually say that basically what it means is like, let's make America pre-Obama. Like, let's try to go and take it back to a point. But I think probably that was the initial intent, and his followers have taken it beyond that point, to a point that I don't think we can actually even pinpoint exactly what is it that they're actually taking it, because they have so many historical facts interpreted in so many, I don't want to say wrong, because I don't want to make a judgment of the way that they're seeing the information they're receiving, but it's just, we have historical evidence that says that many of the things that they're trying to think, like maybe like the Nazis, like come on, like United States fought against this group. So it doesn't even make sense when you attach the phrase to those specific actions, right? So if we just limit it to what we can see right now, it kind of takes us to an era in that it was basically, and as you can see now, most of the things that he's doing now, it speaks to the destruction of a legacy of basically most of the bills that he is trying to replace are bills that were a product of Obama's legacy. So they don't, in some of them, there's no even a reason behind it that speaks to the public interest into why these things are really, there is a need for these things to change, right?
Right. So, I mean, it's like, but you're right in terms of, and this is where this whole thing about dog whistling came from. Folks took that. Now, with him personally, I think he meant it that way, but others give him the benefit of the doubt. But folks took that as if it's time for us, the nationalists, the KKK, the supremacists, it's time for us to take back and rise in power again. Because in Charlottesville, David Duke said, we came here in the name of Donald Trump. We came here to fulfill his mission of making America great again. Now, that's what he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said. So there are folks who indeed took it that way. Now, the good thing about it is, we were talking about the younger generation earlier. this generation is coming through now. They're not going to take that nonsense that occurred early last century or late into the other century prior to that, or in the 50s, 60s. That your group and a little younger than you, they are not going to take that. And we saw that in Charlottesville.
No, it's again, I mean, if we attach everything that is happening back to the law, if you think about it, I mean, one of the premises of the law is that ignorance of it doesn't exempt you of responsibility, right? So if you translate that back to society, it's the same thing about having so much information in front of you that it's so easily accessible. However, there is a lack of tools or skills to really understanding that information that is in front of you and critically analyze it, or how to be deconstructed in a way that you can really take what are the facts, what are the claims, what are the opinions. Because, I mean, the people that are putting together these messages, that they have the power to create definitions and messages, they know about this how to use these strategies to portray their messages, right? How to, depending on the audiences that they want to target, right? And Mr. Trump has said it. He loves the uneducated. And what happens with the uneducated, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, is that they have a short, in terms of patience, they have a shorter amount of that they actually can wait when it comes to information. So they're not interested in interpreting your information. They're interested in you giving the information already interpreted. And he has sold himself to them in a way that makes them believe that he knows it all. So they don't really find a need to go beyond whatever he says. That's why
correct.
Mr. Trump has gone even farther into creating his own news network, because his followers, and he knows it, his followers are not going to question what he says.
That's
not
correct.
Because they're not capable or to do it, but like you said, the difference between ignorance and being purposely ignorant of something.
Right.
So if you take it back to the law, it's the same. It's like, well, you probably didn't knew about the law, and then you made the mistake. But when you know about the law and you still commit the crime, it's like, come on, like, you know?
Exactly.
And, I mean, I think, in a way, anything that we can say about Mr. Trump when it comes to that, he knows what he's doing. That's why he said something today, and then tomorrow he says, oh, no, I didn't mean that. And then he shares so many messages that it's really hard for his followers to just say, oh, this is exactly what he meant, because it's so convoluted.
Right.
Claims, opinions, information, facts. I'm not saying that maybe within something that he's saying there might be some facts, but it's so convoluted with other things that when you're just like, think about people, like you said, new generations, the way that they work on the internet. They're trying to open a link, and if it takes more than 5-10 seconds, they close it and try to look for something else.
Correct.
So the same with information. If I read it and I understand it the first time, move to the next one. I want something simple, something that I can shoot, something that I can put in 40 characters or less, you know? So...
No, you're absolutely right. And that's what I'm saying. They're not, and you've hit the nail right on the head in terms of the followers. Like I said, not being disrespectful, but for the most part, the hardcore base, they're not the educated ones, because the educated ones are seeing right through and saying, we can't buy into that. That's why you have even so many within the White House who are leaving.
Uh-huh.
They can't. Because I mean, if you have any kind of sense whatsoever with a lot of this stuff that's going on, you know, first off, a lot of this nonsense is not true. A lot of things that he says. Then there's some other issues going on there as well. But I know your focus is on in terms of the Latin American community, which is vital, because this is the part with any of them that keeps. And don't get me wrong. In terms of, I understand there's only so much space within any country to take so many people. But the truth of the matter is there would be no America had folks not immigrated to it. If all the different backgrounds and nationalities, folks from Europe and England and everywhere else had not migrated to the United States, there would be no United States. And if you really want to take it all the way back, the Indians were here first. They took the land over from them. So, I mean, for them to be talking, no, we can't have any immigrants and this, that, and the other, and to be making these statements that every immigrant is a criminal or a bad or a thug, a bad hombre, and this, that, and the other, that's off. It is.
However, like I said in like page 150, you think about like how this motto take us back, like how it helps to demonize the Latino and the Latino and Hispanic community. Everything that he said, his followers, again, we go back to that, they're not going to question it. So, first of all, America is not just United States. So it's like you said, it's North America, Central America, right. South America. So we're all really Americans here. Like, what is it really that you're talking about? And then if you just minimize it to what it means to be part of the United States, but then you normalize these colonization practices, then it becomes easier and easier to say, well, yeah, Latinos are not welcome here. Like, based on this piece of evidence, which is what Mr. Trump is sharing with us, we can then agree with him that it is true that they have nothing to do here. So they automatically become the other. And the thing about this is, like, if we go back again to what it comes first, communication on the law, and you think about all the treaties when it comes to international law that have been signed between what it is, again, North America, Central America, and South America, or Latin America, or how you want to call it. There's so many ways, but we're all Americans. These laws eventually are going to come into play, and he's going to have to make decisions on them. And the easiest way for him to make his supporters to support whatever he does when it comes to these laws is to first have been created a rhetoric that says it's bad to have relations with them.
That's correct, because you're right, because I'm looking here, as you wrote in your article. In addition, the motto blatantly ignores that America is not just the United States, but also North America, Central America, and South America, and also ignores that the history of the United States itself is grounded on the defiance of governmental power, the invasion of a strange land, the near extermination of the legitimate owners of such land, as we were just talking about, and the exploitation of such land through the slavery of another group of people, which was forcibly brought here. In short, the motto seems to suggest that not only all types and dimensions of colonization were great, but that we should go back to a time in which all those practices were accepted and praised, and a hierarchy of people was not only expected, but also respected. The hierarchy of people that reemerged out of the motto of, quote, make America great again, unquote, impacted and demonized all minority groups in the United States, including the Latino and Hispanic community within the United States and abroad. Well said. And that's out of the book, News Chaser.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you asked me before about how, for example, how I connect some of the things that I do with this thing. Some of the things that I noticed during his campaign, and specifically with this motto and how you say how some people took it as make America white again, Latinos have been sold an idea that we have, as United States people in the United States do, that we have to put labels to who we are. Like I was saying before, Puerto Ricans, we are all colors of the rainbow. And there's nothing more exciting for a Latino, regardless of where you are, Salvador, Guatemala, Panama, Peru. When we hear another person speaking Spanish, that's all it really matters. So, but however, during this time, we saw these emergence about Latinos identifying themselves as white. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if your skin is, if we're talking about how your skin looks, then, there's some truth in what you're saying. However, there is a very low percentage of Latinos that can actually say that they're white, because our heritage, like the historical heritage of almost every Latin American country and Hispanic, has some sort of African roots in it.
That's correct. And it's funny you should bring that up, because one of my best friends, and she was my supervisor at the time, her name was Glad Perez. At the time, her name was Perez. And we had this discussion, and we got into a heated debate over this whole thing. And I get the Caucasian, I get the Mongoloid, I get the whole Caucasoid, I get it, I know. But exactly what you just said is exactly it. And I tell people all the time what you just said in a different way. And that is the slave ship stopped on all those islands before it hit the United States. And folks were right. It did. Those ships stopped in all of those islands, either dropping people off or either the boat, the ship people were in there doing their thing, migrating, not migrating, I mean, you know what I'm saying, having intercourse or what have you, and they were making babies as they went along. That's why you got all these different shades. And the boats were dropping folks off on their way to the United States. So when you start getting into that, you're absolutely correct.
Exactly. I mean, there was an era in where, I mean, colonization, that was the main trade practice of the globe. So people crossed each other around, like, and I mean, but it looked like, remember what I told you about the ignorance of the law does not exempt your responsibility. I remember while I was pursuing my Ph.D., reading this specific book about Paul Gilroy that talks about like this dynamics within the Atlantic, and not even once he mentioned the islands. I mean, for example, Puerto Rico, and I grew up learning a history of Puerto Rico, and where we learned that slavery was key in our past, that Puerto Rico was actually called the key of the Atlantic because most of these trade ships would stop there. So there was we had a culture like a plantations and the sugar cane. So we learned about these things. So for me, it was very, I don't even know how to explain how I felt when I was in that class, hearing the discussion, and in my head be like, oh my God, but where is my past of slavery? How I fit into this class? And then I just took the decision to just share my own history and let them know, like, I don't agree. I mean, I might agree with some of the things that Paul Gilroy is saying in his book, but I don't agree with most of it because he's not including everybody in this dynamic. And mine is not less important than what he's saying. I actually think they attach. And I think it's important to attach those histories.
No, you're absolutely right. I could not agree with you more. And see, this is where I have issue, and I'm in education. And it's gotten a little bit better, but not much, because I know when I went to school, it was almost non-existence with the exception of maybe Crispus Attucks, and maybe at that Martin Luther King wasn't even in at that time yet, because whenever I was coming through, Martin Luther King had just gotten assassinated, so he wasn't in the history book yet. So at that time, the only African-American, only contribution we heard of black people was Crispus Attucks. Over time, it has gotten better. And then when you start getting into Hispanics, that was non-existent. The Latino was non-existent until the latter years, where now they're beginning to revise history books and beginning to kind of sort of acknowledge the contributions of everybody. But even that is minuscule in relation to what has already been taught and the folks who are already here who was taught in that manner, because it is amazing the number of inventions, things that we use on a daily basis that were invented by other people that they never got the credit for in history books or in conversations. You would think that everything on the face of the earth was created by a European or Caucasian, and it's not true.
No.
It's not. So I'm going to share some information real quick, and we're going to come back. I got a couple of things I need to do, but if you've just joined us, my guest is Aitza. And do you say Haddad or Haddad? How do you say the Haddad piece?
Yes, Aitza Haddad.
Haddad, it is. Aitza Haddad-Nunez. She is my guest this morning, and we're talking about her contribution to the book News Chaser, The Rhetoric of Trump in Essays and Commentaries, Anti-Immigration and Isolationism. And we have seen examples of that throughout the campaign, as well as in the presidency in and of itself. So let somebody know, get on all your social media sites. Let someone know that Aitza's on the air with me. Again, another conversation. Again, we don't, in all honesty, and I tell you this all the time, regardless of which platform or medium I'm on, I don't necessarily care if you agree with me or us or not, but if nothing else, at least think. You know what? I didn't think about it that way. I hadn't looked at it that way. I hadn't thought about it like that until they said that. Now, you may disagree with it, but hey, you know what? At least it's in your consciousness. So anything that I put out is for that. It's to challenge you to think, because I'm really big on creating critical thinkers. Because last week I talked about a blog post that I did. I titled it, "You Think Too Deep." And I won't go back into that again, but that's what I get told a lot whenever I'm looking into situations, and I know they run deeper than what we see on the surface. So people always say, "Mark, you think too deep." No, I don't. I need more people to think deeper. That's why I do what I do. So get on all your social media sites. Let someone know that Aitza's on the air with me. I'm going to do everything that I need to do and get it out the way so we can continue our conversation. And before you know it, it'll be time. I'll be out and Barry will be in with the Naked Brunch at 9.
Ranger Station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
Music, the vinyl frontier. Tune into the adventures of Rewind to Now. Its weekly mission, to explore time-honored music, to seek out lesser-known bands and forgotten tunes, to boldly go where the music is the star of the show. How you doing, G-Man checking in? Set your radio, computer, and tricorder to the one program that enables you to experience the future of the past through the music. We interface Sundays at 9 a.m. Prepare to be transported to a world where the music is fascinating. Set your coordinates to Rewind to Now. It's the logical thing to do. No bones about it.
I started going cold turkey. Well, at least when I'm in the car.
I know I shouldn't do it, but it's so hard to stop. That's why I hide it from myself, so I won't be tempted.
I used to do it all the time. I stopped by locking it in my glove compartment.
My friend used to do it way too much. Now I turn it off when we're in the car.
My solution is simple. I just don't do it.
There are lots of ways to stop yourself and others from texting and driving. How will you stop? Tell us at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
WPSC, Wayne, New Jersey. On the radio, 88.7 FM. Online, gobrave.org. A tune-in radio station. Part of the William Patterson Broadcast Network.
Broadcasting live from Hobart Hall in Wayne, New Jersey.
This is
The Innovative.
I think they're really unique.
The Fearless.
They have awesome variety.
The Kick-Ass.
I love Brave New Radio.
The Sensational.
I've never heard anything like it.
This is the one and only Brave New Radio.
Here's your North Jersey weather report.
Wow, that's how quick that hour went. It's 8 o'clock. The weather, 51.6 degrees right now. And we are going to work our way up to a high of, I tell you, this thing knows when I'm trying to read it because that's when it starts going wacky. The computer, that's what I read the weather from. It knows whenever I'm trying to read it because it starts rebooting and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So, okay, here we go. We're back again, 51.6 degrees. Partly cloudy today. And as I said, you know what? That's what I'm gonna give you right now for the weather because I don't have time. Like we were talking about earlier about if it starts spinning and don't do what it need to do, whenever you want to move on to the next thing. That's where I'm at the moment in terms of weather. So right now, 51.6 degrees in the northern New Jersey area, in the Wayne, New Jersey area. And it is brought to you right here from WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. I don't know what goes on with this thing whenever I'm trying to give the weather. It just seems to know. So I tell you what, I'll try to see if I can reboot it, but I don't want to waste the time. My guest this morning is Aitza Haddad-Nunez, and we've been talking about her contribution. Okay, here it goes. It's back now. All right. 51.7 degrees, clear. I'm going to give you the abbreviated quick version. Partly cloudy skies this morning, will become overcast during the afternoon. 60 is a high, 59 is a low. Tomorrow, Sunday, rain early, then remaining cloudy with showers in the afternoon. 70 is a high, 50 is low. Mostly sunny, or mostly clear, shall I say, Sunday night. And then mostly sunny on Monday, Labor Day. 81 is a high, 63 as a low. Tuesday, sunshine and some clouds. 85 as a high, 65 as a low. And Wednesday, 78 as a high, 63 as a low. Expect scattered thunderstorms. Now, that's the weather brought to you from the WP 88.7 FM Weather Center. My guest this morning is Aitza Haddad-Nunez, and we've been talking about her contribution to the book News Chaser, The Rhetoric of Trump in Essays and Commentaries. As you know, if you've been listening to the show over the last few weeks, this has been a series because all of my guests over the last few weeks and a few more to come have been contributors to this book. And we're talking about The Rhetoric of Trump in Essays and Commentaries, and Aitza's particular essay or commentary was Anti-Immigration and Isolationism. I sit there and listen. I have to almost break myself away from the news every day because I don't watch the news all the time. But I know once I sit down and I turn CNN on, I sit there and I know what they're going to say. Each commentator gets on and says the exact same story, and I still sit there like an idiot and listen to it over and over again. But a lot of those stories that they're talking about is the president's policies and his views on immigration. I mean, in the beginning, it was Vicente Fox, the former president of Mexico. He gave me one of the biggest laughs when Trump was on there. He's still saying it. Still saying this nonsense. Talking about Mexico's going to pay for the wall. Vicente was real clear, vulgar, to the point. We're not paying no effing wall. And he didn't say effing. And they were on, they were on live TV when he said it.
As a lawyer, that topic, it just boils my blood because one thing is that he might want the wall, okay, perfectly fine. I'm not going to debate on that. However, when it comes to international law, we're talking about two sovereign nations. We're not talking about United States being the empire of the globe or like the like the king or like we're not the we are one of the what is considered, I mean, in terms of theory, the superpowers of the world. But United States is not above any other sovereign nation. So when it comes to law, no sovereign nation can tell another sovereign nation what to do. So if you take it as simple as that, no, he cannot tell Mexico to pay for something, period. As simple as that. Just imagine a kid. Like, think about your parents and a kid. A parent is a sovereign human being because it governs itself. The kid is not. So it just works out. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's as simple as that. It just can't. He can say,
right.
And again, we were talking about information. That's what he's sharing. That's what his non-educated followers hear. So that's what they're going to believe.
Right.
Yet when you just bring it down to the simple basics of law, no. Mexico will not pay for it.
No, he gets on. I mean, he says that like proudly. Like, Mexico's gonna pay for the wall. But that's why when Vicente went back at him with the way he did, man, did I laugh. I said, I don't blame him. I probably would have said the same thing. But he was making it very clear. He was making his plain. We are not paying, and they ought not. I hope they don't. He can talk that nonsense all he wants, but how are you gonna make another country pay for something that you want?
Well, my only theory, and if you kind of like, you find a little bit of this, I've been explaining it in the book, and I'll say page around, I have it here. When I talk about the NAFTA, he has said things about, make a statement about the effectiveness of the NAFTA, North America trade.
Yeah, he keeps calling it the worst deal ever made. Yeah, he calls it the worst deal ever made.
Which is not. But again, if you call against something, you say something as a fact, when in reality it's your opinion, you have to think again, well, how is he situated within this treaty? He's a businessman.
Right.
Of course he's going to say it's a treaty that regulates trade. So as a businessman, of course he's going to think that it's horrible. But we have to think that businessmen are not the only people inhabiting the globe. So we have to also think about the little people like us, that we have to breathe, that we have to just survive. And these treaties are meant for that, to be able for these practices to continue in a way that protects the little people as well. So that's why he calls it that way. However, the person that don't know nothing about the law just hear, okay, NAFTA, he says it's horrible. Yes, it is. Take it away. I don't care what it is, but he says it's horrible. Let's just get rid of it. And first of all, if it actually happens, and the thing about NAFTA is that includes Canada, United States, and Mexico, but he's specifically attacking Mexico.
Correct. But see, that goes back again. That it will go back again as to, gee, why? It was the same thing whenever, if you remember a couple of weeks ago when the CEOs began, right after Charlottesville, a lot of the CEOs that was on one of his committees started backing out based on his views. The only one he attacked was the African-American CEO.
Oh.
He didn't say anything about the other ones. Right. He attacked the African-American CEO, and people questioned that then.
And the attack was so quick after the CEO made that decision that people actually compare it to how long he took to mention Charlottesville, because he said nothing. I mean, he took right after it happened, Charlottesville. I mean, in terms of how quick he is to react to certain things, his attack to this CEO was like right after. Like, he didn't wait. I don't think almost not even a day.
No, it wasn't a day. It was the same day. But see, the point is, that's what I'm saying. That's what we're talking about in terms of patterns. That's why when you make the statement, "Make America Great Again," that's why so many people can interpret it in another way, because your actions are saying exactly what we think you meant with that. So all right, because I'm going to take it like recent, like over the last few days, when he pardoned the Sheriff Arpaio. Okay, I stay up on my current events now, because I told people this morning, this is the reading circle. So anything that we come at you with is something that we've read or we've written or is, current events or what have you. That's why it's so important to read, because you need to stay up with what's going on and then be able to kind of triangulate the information to kind of say, well, what does that mean to me? So, okay, recently, the pardoning of Arpaio. Now, most presidents, when they do pardoning, it's on their last day in office.
Right.
Yes, and they do whoever they're going to pardon, regardless of what the person did or did not do. Usually presidents do that on their way out. This man pardoned somebody his 7th or 6th month into the position, and someone who folks already kind of feel like, this guy's racist, and talk about anti-immigration. Arpaio is it. According to folks. I don't know him. I had never heard of his name until this whole thing. Okay. But he stands up and said, Sheriff Joe is a great man. Sheriff Joe is a patriot. Sheriff Joe is this, that, and the other, so forth and so on. Folks would look at that because again, CNN started now pulling all the Latino folks on the air. Matter of fact, the host that got kicked out by Trump was one of them. What's his name? Jorge? Jorge was one of them. Okay. And then they had this congressman or either a state assemblyman or something from Arizona who was Hispanic, who was defending Trump. And I forget his name. But that takes me to the point in the book where you start talking about where folks seems or feels betrayed. This Latino and Hispanic support for Trump not only seems ironic and for many a betrayal to their own, it is also misguided, misinformed, and almost solely grounded on hateful definitions of Christianity and obsessive desire and need for guns and the fantasy of economic growth and independence. Now, this is that same stuff that particular congressman was talking that night. So talk a little bit about the Latinos or the Hispanics, because I found it interesting. It might have been that same Arizona conference, and this is why I know this was a paid person. They had somebody standing behind Trump, and this guy I know good and well probably didn't even vote. I could be wrong, but I doubt very seriously if that guy that I saw on that particular video clip standing up there talking about blacks for Trump, I doubt if he even voted. But he's standing up there with a sign, that big old sign standing behind Trump that says blacks for Trump. So what is it now? Yes, he was giggling. Yeah, oh, you saw it then. Oh, he was giggling and acting silly and carrying on. He put the sign up every now and again, blacks for Trump. I said, there ain't no way in the world you can't tell me he voted. He was one of those paid people that they were talking about that came to the rally. But to your point,
theories about he might be. But like we were saying before, there is some privilege when it comes to Latinos identifying. Especially white Latinos, or what they might be considered themselves as white, to identify with this group. So it when it comes to, I call it like this betrayal, because for so many, like the worst of fighting for your community, it's less than the privilege that it brings to identify yourself as white. So when you have to choose between one or the other, then you choose the identification of white, and you support it by these ideas of, no, because I'm a Christian, yet, I mean, from my understanding of being a Christian, you're supposed to just see people as human beings. Then this thing
That's
about
correct.
the Second Amendment, which again don't make much sense because it was created in a time, in a historical time, that the amendment was necessary, but I'm not going to get into that topic. And then the whole thing about this fantasy of economic growth and independence comes from what I said at the very beginning, like this idea. I'm going to say this as a joke, but I actually blame the fact that we have Mr. Trump as a president now in a little way, and I don't have nothing against Disney World, but I blame it a little bit to Disney World. So this idea that the white, blonde Prince Charming is going to come and say,
right.
You remember the white female vote was determinant. Like it played a huge role in Mr. Trump winning
right.
The election. So if you think about like the relation between how Disney shares from when you're a little girl, shows you how you should, like how a man is going to come and save you, and you think that Obama's era was horrible, and then you see this Prince Charming coming and saying, I'm going to save you, and I'm going to make things better again, then you're going to believe that. So for these Latinos that want to jump into that wagon.
But that's great. I'll tell you with that, because interesting that he beat 16 other Prince Charmings. I mean, on that ticket, on that, and not all of them fit that description, because you had Ben Carson on there, you had Carly Fiorino, but most of them, except for Marco Rubio, most of them, I mean, he beat 14 or 15 other Prince Charmings. That's the crazy part.
Oh, absolutely. But the way that he communicates is absolutely different than the other ones that the other ones communicate.
Right.
So he was selling the fallacy or the idea or the belief that it would be easier for his followers to understand him than the other ones, because he was giving the information in the most simple and easiest way for them to understand. And people kind of like that when you're selling a product nowadays in this such a quick technological era.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's like, I put this on my social media the other day. Two of the lamest excuses for Trump's behavior to me are he's a businessman and he's so authentic. And again, I hang on words. So like, okay, the businessman piece is exactly what you said earlier when we were talking about NAFTA. But that authentic piece, authentic meaning what? What is your definition of authentic? He's saying what you really feel, but you feel like you're afraid to say. He's doing things that you want to do that you're afraid to do. That's to me how he got in there. I mean, and I don't, in all honesty, and I've said this before in the air, and I'm going to continue to say it. I am not mad at I am not mad at Trump, and I'll tell you why. Because he didn't put on an act. He did not put on not one act. The same thing Trump has always done since he was a kid is the same thing Trump did in that campaign, is the same thing Trump is doing now in the presidency. So I'm not mad at him. I am, however, disappointed in the people, enough people that voted for that to say that's who we want to lead us.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Me too.
So I understand where you're coming from with the Disney thing. I understand what you're saying, like the white knight, the great white hope, the this, that, and the other. I get it. Yes. But then you have those, like you were saying here, and I'm trying to look up that congressman or assemblyman's name. That's what I'm sitting here doing while we're talking, to see who, because he was staunch in his support of Trump, and Jorge was like taking him to task. Because Jorge and this congressman were the two that were on that day debating this whole issue. And Jorge was kind of saying the same thing you said. Like, how dare you sit up there and defend this man knowing how Sheriff Joe is?
Mm-hmm. And everything you said about their own families and things. The whole thing about the Prince Charming, and it actually speaks more to like the white female. Think about that in the white male. I mean, these people are ambitious. They think that someday, or they think that someday they're going to be able to become millionaires. So Trump is this idea of who they want to be. So the fact that he is so blatant in the way that he talks gives them the wrong the idea that if you are that way, then you can get that far. So it's going to give them a little bit of hope in terms of, it's possible for me to become a millionaire, because even if I'm obnoxious, I'm still going to get to where I want to be. So if he's selling a product that actually speaks to both sides of this audience, if you think about it, like I mean, again, I'm not like you. I'm mad at that there was enough people to vote for him to believe that this product would actually take us somewhere.
Right.
To then vote for it. But I think the way the product was sold in terms of marketing, I think it was genius.
I agree with you. I agree. And again, one of my
divide and conquer.
Absolutely.
So
I just said yesterday, because my undergraduate degree, my bachelor's, is business administration. And I had a concentration in marketing. And we were in the store, and they had these little fidget spinners. They had them right there, and those things drive me silly in a school with the kids. They had them right there as an impulse purchase, positioned right there at the cash register. And so I was telling my wife, I said, see, they know what they're doing. It was a big stack of them. I said, they know it's back to school. They know the parents are in here shopping for back to school. They put those things right there for some kid to worry the daylights out of their parents while they're standing on this line to go check out. Sure enough, after I told her that, this little boy was standing there. He pulled one down and started fooling with it, started worrying the heck out of his mother. I said, I hope she don't get it. But I said, that's what I love about marketing, is that whole notion of influence.
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. That's what marketing and advertising and sales is about. It's about influence. I mean, that person had no intent of buying a fidget spinner, but because it was sitting there, and they do that with candy and stuff too, because it was sitting there and that child is now driving them silly, they throw it on the line. They throw it on the conveyor belt.
Yeah, it's triggering collective behavior.
Yes.
It's not really, I mean, I don't think the initial intent is to change society, but then you trigger a certain different collective behaviors that eventually it's going to change society. Or it's going to, like it happened now, it's going to like show the true colors of society. But it's absolutely true. That's the way to trigger collective behavior. I think that was exactly what happened with Mr. Trump. They were very effective in triggering a type of collective behavior that it's supported or justified by the demonizing of the others under the justification that they feel oppressed somehow.
So knowing everything during the camp, because like I said, I'm not mad at Trump at all, because like I said, it was from a marketing or salesmanship standpoint, yes. But hearing everything that he said as a Hispanic person, how would you now support that? Because for the most part, he was saying, I don't want you in this country. I mean, because when they start statistically working the numbers of folks who came to the country who did well and made something of themselves, those numbers far outweigh the criminals that came across. But you positioned it in a way to make it appear that the only thing that comes across the border are criminals. And yet now you have Hispanics like, oh yeah, we think he's right. How do you... Talk to me a little bit about that.
For example, I have asked the same question to people, Latinos, friends that I have myself that are trying to support or have supported Mr. Trump. And some of the things that when it comes to immigration, right away they answer, oh, no, I support legal immigration. I'm with him because he's going to do things against illegal immigration. So they already have bought into the idea that everybody that comes illegally is a criminal, is a rapist. Is a bad hombre, is a fat Latina lady, you know? And you know how he speaks about fat women. So they have already bought into this idea. And again, I mean, I'm not saying all, but most of Latinos that identify with the ideas of Mr. Trump, they're either Latinos that identify themselves as white, or they're successful business people, like people that they don't want to pay taxes, or they don't want to see their businesses affected, or they don't want to pay a piece of their pie for other people to be in better conditions just because they think that they are that way because they're lazy. And they don't understand that sometimes social conditions just are pulling you down, even if you're trying to just get out of the barrel.
Right.
So it's just the inability of having apathy or identifying themselves or understanding, because, again, these places, Latin America and myself, Puerto Rico, which is in the Caribbean, they're beautiful. I love my people, but they're not utopias either. So we are also sold an idea that what it means to be an American, like a part of the United States. Like I remember growing up in Puerto Rico, watching in Univision Full House, translated in Spanish.
Right.
And then the only shows that I remember watching that had African Americans in them was Fresh Prince, and you kind of know that.
Right.
I mean, I'm Fresh Prince. A Different Strokes.
Right.
And then again, the same thing about the white saving the. So it was very select. And now that I'm an adult, like growing up, I have to say, I mean, I was guilty of watching them all.
Oh yeah.
Actually, kind of into this idea of what it meant to be becoming part of the United States, like what it meant to be a white lady, blondie. I needed to maybe straighten my hair a little bit to look a little more. So we are also sold this idea, and it kind of creates a classism between the people in the island, which I'm sure it happens in other Latin American countries. So yes, we are all the colors of the rainbow, and we appreciate all those colors, but at the same time, we tend to relate the darkers to the less or more poor condition.
Right.
So there is some sort of look over the shoulder. And because these dynamics are already there, it kind of makes, again, Latinos and Latin American and Hispanics like a perfect incubator for this divisive agenda that he has. And either you do understand the suffering of your community and you're completely against it, or you are the ones that are able to enjoy a little bit of the white privilege. And because you don't want to lose it, then you are more willing to attack those who come from where you come just because they look different than you.
Wow.
Or they're situated different
and
than you are.
You're right. And sadly, that's nothing new. In the African-American community, we have the same thing with the lighter skin African-Americans versus the darker skin. That's always been, again, the divide and conquer. You're absolutely right. It's sad because... And it's always the darker ones always the one. And I happen to be dark, so I mean the darker ones are always the ones that are looked at or thought of as being the lesser. And the lighter you are, the better. Like I was sharing this last week. Here where I live and working in the school system, we've had a few times when we had this nonsense, Dominicans against blacks. And I said, you idiots. Same thing we talked about with the boat stopping. You're all black. What do you call it? Dominicans against black. What are you talking about? What do you call it? The boat just stopped. I said, so if you knew your history, you would not be having that beef. All right. And the good thing now, in terms of technology, I tell you while we were talking, I was trying to find this name. Sure enough, I pulled the article up. Arizona State Senator Ramos spar over Arpaio pardon. Actually, his name is Steve Montenegro. It says, Arizona Republican State Senator Steve Montenegro supports President Trump pardoning of Sheriff Joe Arpaio, while Univision anchor Jorge Ramos says Trump is defending racism. And I saw that debate. It was good. But if you want it, it's online under CNN Politics. Arizona State Senator Ramos spar over Arpaio pardon. But his name was, and Ramos was actually, was absolutely right. He told Montenegro, which was true. He said, your family came over here that way. You came over here that way. Why wouldn't you want the same thing for someone else that was afforded to you?
And I mean, you can say, if you know the person, if you know Joe Arpaio personally and you think that he's a good guy and you want to give that opinion to himself, that's good for you. But if we go back to, again, the facts and the evidence and what we have in the table and what happened legally, he was found guilty. And when we are in a country that you are innocent until you're proven guilty. And that means that there is enough evidence beyond reasonable doubt to take away your freedom rights, to put you in a position where you're not a sovereign human being no more, because now the state basically have the rights over you because you made a huge mistake. And there's the evidence beyond reasonable doubt is almost 99% that what we're saying is true. So there was an actual court order saying that he needed to refrain from racially profiling Latinos.
Correct.
And he violated. There is 99% evidence saying that he violated. So how dare you saying? And then he's now running for a Senate?
Yes. He's running against Flake or whatever his name is.
And then you're trying to tell me that I should not tell my Latino Hispanic community not to be afraid, not to be scared. Like the Dreamers, come on. I mean, they did not choose to become, like they were kids. They come here it's inhumane. Like, and then you're destroying families when you are
right
from the party that claims to protect family values. Like this, it's just things that don't attach. They don't match. There are just in simple terms. There is an oxymoron. Like you cannot. No. Like I'm as a lawyer. I'm debating everything that I learned. In
right.
Law. Like I'm like, what? Where is my degree going? Like what?
Wow.
Like,
but see, like, and I haven't. During this, so far in the short 6 or 7 months that this administration has been in the seat, there are a lot of lawyers questioning that, a lot of judges questioning that because they're cutting across the law. I mean, that's why you've had even with all these various immigration initiatives, the judges have been shooting them down because they're illegal. And he's been trying to convince people that they're legal when they're not. So you've had a lot of judges and lawyers, even his own personal counsel, even Trump's own personal counsel. You've had them scratching their heads. Like, what is this man doing?
I don't know. I mean, I like one of the comparisons that I do within my article, and I actually taking basically piggybacking on different Latin American figures that have actually done the same comparison. He reminded a lot of the former late president of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez. Like,
right.
And this actually what it means is that he is what we can actually call now an American caudillo, like caudillismo. Like it's very similar to what populism is. It's
right.
Just like the lines between authoritarianism and democracy become very blurred in a way that your democracy actually becomes whatever the leader says, and
right.
that's my democracy because I'm deciding to actually become your mental slave.
Right. It's moving its way into dictatorship, of which the United States is not a dictatorship.
Very, very rapidly. And I think he's very, and when it comes in the way that he's changing the laws, and that's what I actually question in my own profession when it comes
right.
to the part of a lawyer and as a professor, I actually think I'm scared because the faster and faster I become less and less valid and effective, and the ones that actually work or that protect the people, not the corporations, they're just going away. I used to think that we were turning into a dollarocracy or like a plutocracy. Now I'm scared that we are actually turning into and his intention of, because he has this other kind of short motto that he has attached to the Make America Great Again, like America First. He's kind of isolating the United States from the world in a way that he wants the United States to be the center power of the world, but the people of the United States to only be. It's just a very, very weird structure. What I'm looking at, like, so we are like we are the ones that are powerful over every other nation of the world. What he's trying to do with Mexico, again, one sovereignty nation calling the shots over another sovereignty nation, which then basically situating the United States as if it's beyond what its sovereignty means. So it's like the superpower of the globe, and now, but at the same time, isolating the people from everybody else in the world. And in a way, the United States is a little bit isolated too. Like people tend to say that everything kind of like the globe, the sun goes around the United States, like anything else happens outside this world. And now, thanks to media and things, we kind of are understanding that, well, and I mean, not everybody, but we are seeing that the globe includes more people. But Mr. Trump has actually said that globalization is to blame for the situation in which the United States is now, when in reality, globalization, like the main foot soldier of globalization has been basically United States. It's like in the epoch of globalization that we are now, which is called actually electronic colonization, it is actually about that, the promotion of United States taste, values, morals, history, like the culture. So he's just twisting history to get away with what he wants, but basically what he's saying is completely the other way around.
Absolutely.
And becoming this caudillo, it's just scary.
Which brings us full circle, and we've come to just about the end of our time together. But this is why it's so important for those in the listening audience. You have to encourage everybody in your circle of influence. They must read. They must think. They must observe. I've said constantly, one of the reasons why we're kind of as dumb as we are, and I hate to say it that way, and I'm talking about as a country, is because, and it could be because we're so busy, maybe, but we accept whatever soundbite is given us and keep moving with it. That's why he's able to get away with what he's. All you got to do is soundbite it in the press, and you're good. I mean, I each week now for the last couple of weeks, particularly with your particular guest in the book, I've been telling folks, I guess I could be considered a conspiracy theorist, only because I don't believe half of the stuff that comes out of the government. I don't. The stories are too, like, in terms of all the assassinations, I don't believe Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK. I don't believe that James Earl Ray killed Martin Luther King. I don't believe Sirhan Killed Robert F. Kennedy. I don't believe Malcolm was. And maybe they were the players, but they were not by themselves. They was. I mean, I'm to the point. I saw something the other day, but even about 9/11, that 9/11 wasn't 9/11. I mean, you really do have to question things, and that's why people say you think too deep. No, you're too shallow. And because anything can be told to you, and you take that as gospel, as opposed to really kind of questioning, does that make sense to you? Because a lot of this stuff don't make sense to me. A lot of this stuff that's coming down the pike now is not making sense. And you're absolutely right. Now, you're scratching your head as an attorney, and you got judges scratching their heads as judges. So you know something is wrong. So, folks, I'm telling you, you got to do your research and your homework. Ignorance is not bliss. Just sitting around taking everything at face value, because if you do that, you're not going to take any action. And if you don't take any action, exactly what we just talked about is going to overtake us, which is going to be a dictatorship. Mm-hmm. With that being said, I know the book, because I always give this, the end of the interview, I turn my mic off and let the guest really promote, and anything that you're doing in terms of book signings, where you're going to be, how folks can get in touch with you, your service. The only thing you cannot mention is dollar amount or a price. That's the only thing you can't mention on the air, is any kind of price for your services. But where you're going to be, any shout outs, anything you want to do. I know the book is News Chaser, and I saw something, an email from IO, that you all are going in front of the Congressional Black Caucus, and are you having a tete-a-tete or a soiree with them? So I know that's coming up, but anything else? So I'm going to turn the mic off, and you let folks know, anything you want them to know about Aitza.
Good morning again. Thanks for having me this morning. I'm currently just actually practicing as a professor, teaching 3 different universities, but I am open for any type of legal advice. I don't know if I can share my email, maybe?
No, anything other than dollar amount, anything other than price.
Okay. So my email is amhaddadlaw@gmail.com. Again, amhaddadlaw@gmail.com. Again, Aitza Haddad-Nunez. I speak both English and Spanish. My last name is, like I mentioned, a company in the interview, is from Lebanon. I don't really speak Arab, but I am more there than open, and I would love to also be open for my any person that would like to just share some of your experience with me, because I love to learn about that culture too, and kind of feel closer to my ancestors as well. So any culture, any person, anybody that would just would like a conversation, or just get some legal advice, or learn a little bit about the things that I teach in terms of communication and law, I'm more than happy to help. And just, again, information is power, and we're all here just to make sure that we all have the information that we need to be successful. Thanks again.
Well, thank you for joining me this morning. I know Ayo has been texting me while we were on the air. I think there's a lag on the app, so I think she's getting the interview in lag. It's behind, so she's still listening. Oh. But I do thank her, and I thank you for rising. I wish you nothing but the best in all your endeavors, and keep up the fight. Let your voice be heard. Continue to let your voice be heard, because that is the only way that we will be able to stop what looks like could turn into a dictatorship if enough people don't get together, which I don't. Like I said, I don't think this generation is going to allow it. I know they're not.
If there's still hope, I have so much hope in humanity and our younger generations, and I'm a little scared, because again, we're just living it right now and we're experiencing it. But I haven't given up, and I know the people that they haven't given up either. Love is gonna trump hate, and we're gonna get somewhere. Something is gonna happen, and things are gonna get better for everyone, because we're all human beings, and we all deserve to be happy, and we all deserve a chance to survive.
Absolutely. Well, I've recorded the show, and sometime before the weekend is out, or the next few days, I will send you a copy of the MP3 link, and it's also will be archived on my YouTube channel. That's where I put all of my shows. For those who did not rise with us early to hear it live, they can go back on YouTube and they can catch it there. And I'll send you the MP3 link, and you can share it any way you would like.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Mark, for having me. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Have a wonderfully blessed day, week, and enjoy your Labor Day. And, we'll be back at it. Take care now. All right. That wraps up another episode of The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. My guest this morning was Aitza Haddad-Nunez, and she has a storied bio, many accomplishments to only be 34. And she contributed to the book News Chaser, The Rhetoric of Trump in Essays and Commentaries, and her chapter is Chapter 10, Anti-Immigration and Isolationism, Trump, Latin America, and the Future of International Law. Aitza Haddad, Esquire, Ph.D.